Hello and welcome to Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana. Today we have Lois Koffi. Lois is a transformational and microdosing coach with over 23 years experience, having coached more than 20,000 people in health, fitness, and business. She specializes in helping people uncover and overcome their mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional triggers and wounds, including ancestral trauma and addictive behaviors. As a plant medicine woman, she's also a certified trainer and uses guided visualization and other tools to help clients lead the life they love. I welcome Lois. I love that introduction. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is awesome. So the first thing I said was that you're a microdosing coach, and I'm really excited because microdosing just seems like everyone's talking about it. I've been watching different TV programs on fantastic fungi and all kinds of interesting things about psilocybin. And yeah, so I'm super excited to have you here to talk a little bit about your work. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about, like, maybe just for people who aren't that familiar, what microdosing is and what kind of plants you really work with this plant medicine?
Yeah, I would love that. I'm excited because it's at the time of this recording, it was just a little over 2 years ago that I did my first microdosing, and I didn't know nothing because I'd never done anything like that recreationally. I never done mushrooms or anything. So it was a whole new world. And I turned to it for healing because I had become someone I wasn't at the heart of me. I'd become a binge drinking workaholic who felt really dead inside. So I had mental stuff, I had physical stuff. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am today. And then the spiritual stuff was like non-existent. I was so disconnected from my higher self and my spiritual self. I was just really lost. And someone said, "Hey, go give this plant medicine a whirl." And at that point, I was so broken and so, I don't want to say desperate, but I had tried psychotherapy. I had tried grief counseling because I've lost a lot of people. I've had a lot of death in my life. And I just really even tried marriage and family therapy to save my marriage, and nothing was working. And when I turned to plant medicine, it was the first thing that actually got me into my body and out of my analytical mind. And so what microdosing is, and then I'll briefly mention macro just so you know the difference, is a small amount of a sacred, I like to say sacred because I really want to impress upon people that this is not a recreational hobby that you just go and do with your friends on a Friday night. That's just, I think it's okay if you do that, but for someone who's wanting to heal, it's a sacred plant with a lot of wisdom and a lot of spiritual nourishment for your soul. And so it's literally 500 milligrams or less of psilocybin would be an example. San Pedro is another example. There's even ayahuasca. I don't work in the world of LSD, MDMA. I'm a specialist with psilocybin and ayahuasca, and then of course ayahuasca. Those are my three sacred plants. So I'm just going to speak to those. And then if you're using ayahuasca, it's usually the capi vine. It's not the DMT molecule with the chacruna leaf and the vine. So I'm just talking about the vine itself, and it's in tincture form. So it's usually anywhere from 5 to 10. Again, dosage is different for everyone. So I consult people on this, but 5 to 10, even up to 15 tincture drops under your tongue. And then the micro is really meant to the default mode network, kind of quiet the mind, get you into your heart, get you into your body, allowing you to feel what you can't see, which is usually trauma, anxiety, grief, allow you to feel it so you can heal it. You can't heal what you can't feel. So that's the reason I turned to microdosing, and it slowed down my brain, because part of my addictive behaviors, part of my traumas went back to childhood, of course, but even ancestral. And it's so in that default mode network in the brain that your mind is racing. You're constantly on the go or moving like I was. And I would turn to alcohol to kind of help me to tune that off. But the sacred plants work with that to help quiet the mind, help rework the brain, but most importantly, help you get into your body so you can feel those emotions, those repressed, suppressed, oftentimes disassociated things that we don't want to look at. But unfortunately, I'm here to tell you we've got in order to truly heal and to grow and expand ourselves as human beings. So that's microdosing. And I know for some people are very sensitive. I have some clients who can't even do more than 200 milligrams of psilocybin. So even for some people that are more sensitive for a lot of different reasons, they might even say 200 milligrams or less is
Okay.
a microdose, and anything above that would then be a macrodose. And that's where you're like going under, you're doing a deep dive, 500 milligrams or all the way up to 5-6 grams, or in ayahuasca, 2 or 3, sometimes 4 cups of the tea or the liquid. That's a whole nother conversation we may not get into today.
That's like the ceremony that you do. So you do a microdosing protocol, which would be small doses over maybe a few weeks. I know you have one coming up for about 4 weeks, right? So people do this for a few weeks, and then the macro would be more of a like a ceremonial event where it's a deep dive into deeper repressed trauma work. Is that correct?
You got it, 100%.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, most microdosing is, and there's so many different. That's why it's not a one size fits all. There's the Paul Stamets approach. There's other approaches that I've heard of that I've never actually done, because I actually like the 4 to 5 days on, 2 to 3 days off. So you can have integration time. You can live a little, because a lot of times with microdosing and macro, you're following a particular lifestyle changes, health changes, and helping people usually, not drink alcohol or not partake in things that may be considered quote unquote numbing or interacting with the medicine.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you have to psych yourself up to do this a little bit and get prepared and maybe make a couple alterations in our lifestyle, but it sounds very doable. I know I talked to you previously. It's not like you're being forced to go on fasting or things like that, which might be more challenging. So you basically are just trying to kind of eliminate certain toxins and behavior in your life. And then you also mentioned daily practices, right? And implementing spirituality time, even up to, what did you say, 90 minutes a day? Is that what you recommend?
Yeah. And this is a big thing. I have had this with clients, and I've had people very shocked about this. So I do want to make a really bold, clarifying statement on behalf of the medicine itself. Okay? So I think in America, especially, but globally, this is prevalent. I could just call it a lie. A lot of people think there's quick fixes, magic pills, literally magic mushrooms, and they take the pill and that's it. Then they just go about their day, and all of a sudden they're going to be Superman or Superwoman, and they won't be addicted to alcohol, and they'll sleep so much better, and they'll be levitating. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea. It's not like that at all. This is not a supplement. This is not a shake, a lotion, or a potion. It's a dance. It's a co-creation. You can actually block the medicine and stop it from doing anything for you just by having an inflated ego.
Wow.
And so what people don't understand is they've got to have the mindset, so mental, the physical, and the spiritual. So I have people with a coaching form sit with mental goals, physical goals, spiritual goals. I have them create a sacred practice, 60 to 90 minutes, which can include, but is not limited to, listening to music, mantras, chants, prayers, affirmations, meditation, dancing, getting up and moving your body and dancing with the medicine. There's some people fall asleep because they're just so exhausted by life that they haven't really taken the time to stop and smell the roses, to go inward, to slow down, and to just be. And so that is one of the biggest shockers that I had. And then when I turned around and started coaching people last September, just the misinformation out there is that all the science, right? All the studies show my brain's going to be rewired and all of a sudden I'm going to be a different person. Well, guess what? Not if you don't change other habits, not if you don't really stop and reflect and maybe journal. And how do you get back into alignment? Same thing with me. I was a binge drinking workaholic.
Right.
And it took me 2 years, fully 2 years, 50 deep dives, and then microdosing almost straight for a year, working with a lot of teachers, healers, experts also. And I did not do this on my own. That's the journey that I've been on. And I think I'm still a little shocked that I think people in the pharmaceutical model, they're still in that quick fix, instant gratification. And this is not a quick fix path.
Wow. What you're describing really is that kind of shadow work, the dark night of the soul. You're talking about a year or two of potentially having ramifications in your personal relationships, or where those are healing or either breaking apart or coming together, interpersonal relationship, work relationship, relationship with your career or what you do for a living. It all flips upside down in some cases, right?
Oh, 100%. That's why
Yeah.
I even tell people, and I do these 30-day jump starts, basically a 4-week entry level. I could almost call it level 1 at the time of this recording. I'm thinking about calling it that, but I haven't yet. It's just more of a put your toe in and
Yeah.
see if you're really, really ready, if you're really ready to change, because change is so scary. And if I didn't become a binge drinking workaholic in just even 1 year, it was actually probably about a 15-year, small, subtle changes. And then all of a sudden, boom, 40 pounds later and feeling miserable in my marriage. I wasn't going to fix that in just 30 days. But when I started the journey, I knew that nothing else was working for me. So I committed, and it does take a lot of courage, and it does take bravery to go beyond that first 30 days to see what else is possible for you.
Right. And I think it's looking at it also like this ego work is very interesting to me, how we're going through processes of self-reflection, introspection in order to heal and begin these healing journeys. And I think about a lot of that ego work and ego mastery. We have these different expressions of spiritual paths to enlightenment and how we go through connecting to the heart versus our ego self. I think anyone who is interested in this type of work should definitely be looking at plant medicine as a potential, catalyst, or even just part of the whole journey. That's kind of how I see it, right?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'd like to share one of my certifications that I got was working with the ego, the subconscious, also known as the unconscious. Everybody's got a different label, and I'm not going to go into all of the
psychology.
And then you have the superconscious, which is also known as your divinity within, your higher self, your connection to God, source, creator. Again, whatever you believe in, I'm equal opportunity here. I find that a lot of times the different, self-help movements or all of this personal development has actually done us a disservice, because a lot of people will just think, I'm just going to read a book. I'm going to say a bunch of affirmations. I'm going to go get a certification. I'm going to go get trained. And all of a sudden, I'm just going to have all this money and Think and Grow Rich and all this kind of stuff. But what we don't realize is ego is trying to protect us and keep us safe from the wounds of the past, the trauma, the grief, which is what was happening for me, honestly. And I didn't know it. But my ego is saying, don't go there, girlfriend. Your little girl is really wounded and she's feeling less than, she's feeling not enough. And she's not sure about this marriage thing. And oh my gosh, she's got to be perfect. And oh, we can't be making mistakes. Oh my God, imposter syndrome. So all of that was driving me in my subconscious. And my ego is like, oh, nope, let's just go drink alcohol and not
put it under the rug.
Let's go work another 5 hours. Let's go over here and scroll on social media and get even more depressed by comparing yourself to everyone else. But it's okay, because it's numbing, your brain, and your neurotransmitters are all shut down because you're drinking at the same time. You see what I'm saying? So we get into this vicious cycle, and the ego actually, what I learned from plant medicine is we can make it our friend. We can make it our ally. It's actually trying to help us. But what we want to do is transmute the fear that's coming up through the subconscious and turn it into love and compassion. It's like, oh, okay. So right now you're telling me we feel fear. That's a sign. Let me sit with that. Let me meditate on that. Let me get to, oh, okay. That's my masculine wound. That's not feeling good enough. That's feeling lack. That's feeling scarcity. That's a sign that maybe I got to take a break. Maybe I got to go take a nap. Maybe I got to say no to that person that's trying to, whatever, sell me something.
Yeah. Boundaries. Yeah.
So all of that, again, the plant medicine helped my default mode network, but a lot of my integration and processing, I had to heal through a lot more than just the plant medicine.
Right. Yeah. Because you were talking about this healing through a lot of these generational traumas or ancestral traumas or patriarchy, all of our distorted feminine issues. And one of the things that I think is fascinating is how people have a negative idea about these medicines. Certain religious people will not want to take them because they open up. I was just seeing a post this morning about it bringing in demonic experiences and negative things happening, and people are, so there's a lot of negative association with these, like you said in the beginning, as being psychedelics and people going on wild, crazy drug trips. And I really love your work because it's moving us away from that ideology, right? Which comes from a lot of religion and, guilt mechanisms and things like that, and moves us into this more positive understanding of what's really happening, right? And so can you tell me a little bit about how you've had your own, I know, religious baggage and things like that you came from, and how you've had to work through that in this process, and where it's taken you with healing through a lot of that stuff?
Oh my gosh, do we have
I know.
Yeah, gosh, where do I begin? And I'm pretty open. I did manifest back in 2011. I manifested an autoimmune disease in my throat because at that time I had been judged, we'll just say persecuted for questioning religion. At that time, I had gone through my first spiritual awakening at that time, and people,
because you have a Mormon background, is that right?
It's believe it or not, it's Lutheran.
Lutheran.
So
Okay.
not even Catholic, but I grew up in a very small rural community in Iowa, and there's just a lot of how do I say this? Which I've healed, by the way. So I love my community. There was years and years that I didn't want to go back because I felt like the Scarlet Letter. I felt like I was going to get burned at the stake,
Right.
and that I couldn't say anything, and I had to be watching minding my P's and my Q's. I got rid of all that thanks to plant medicine. And a lot of my drinking issues actually was stemmed from my fear of living my true nature and purpose, which when I went back into my ancestral, they said, oh my gosh, you're a plant medicine woman. You're a pagan. You're cool with all of the gods. You don't have to just do this one. Just so, oh, by the way, this has happened in our pagan Germanic heritage. We were killed and burned by the Christians and forced to convert to this monotheistic culture.
Right.
And oh, by the way, that's happened to most of the planet. And oh, by the way, that's a lot of our issues in the world is because of that patriarchal religion wound saying men are dominant, women are submissive. It's going away with this ascension, this waking up of the planet. That's why I believe the plants are coming back saying, hey guys, it's time to let that shit go. Pardon my French. I don't know if I can swear on here, but let it go. And I, through many ceremonies, I reconnected with Jesus. I was a huge devoted Christian as a kid. But when I had my first awakening and started questioning and expanding my consciousness and realizing maybe there's more to this story. And then I learned a lot about even how a lot of religions were built on mistruths and a lot of brainwashing and a lot of information that unfortunately has led so many people astray. And so when we were alcoholics, they were all, recovering Catholics, right? So I started questioning all of these things and like recognizing it's just because we've all lost sight of our truth. And our truth is, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we can believe whatever we want as it's our personal choice. And so when the plants showed me, my ancestors going through that process, and here I was in some ways reliving it, becoming a binge drinking workaholic and shutting down my own beliefs, shutting down my curiosity, shutting down my adventurous spirit, right? And so once I started to heal and reconnect with Jesus and Mother Mary, and oh, by the way, Mary Magdalene, and a lot of these amazing teachers and ascended masters, I was communing with them under the deep dives. And then as I started microdosing more, then I would commune with them in my daily practice. And so it started to rebuild my heart, started to rebuild my confidence, started to rebuild my faith, because I couldn't even really get into any kind of spiritual form because I just felt so much judgment for myself because I was receiving it from the world, and we are all collectively. So the sacred plants were just kind of like, hey, let's heal that. So I cried and I cried and I cried so much, and really, really reconnected to my heart, and
Mhm.
reconnected to releasing that ancestral
Yeah.
baggage
And
and
like you said,
trauma.
raising the emotions, feeling the emotions, and bringing it all through emotional processing is how it's the trauma is integrated and healed, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also, you also described it as like we were talking about earlier with the ego and connecting to the heart. You also described it as, a lot of people say ego death, but you're like ego integration, right? You integrate it,
Yeah.
not kill the ego,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Yeah.
process of feeling.
Yeah, there is a lot of,
Um,
there's different phrases out there. I'm glad you brought it back, because I did,
yeah.
there's so much I could share with you. Oh my gosh. But some people call it the dissolution of the ego, and they say ayahuasca is very good for that. And I would agree. I just feel like we make the ego out to be the bad guy. And anytime there's a bad guy in the movie, you want to see the bad guy die, or you want to see the bad guy go to jail. And again, here's the thing, a healthy ego, you don't go to the grocery store naked, because you might get caught and you might get arrested, right? The healthy ego is there to
Healthy
also
ego. Yeah.
keep you protected and safe, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, we want to make friends with the ego. And trust me, I know what it was like. I felt many ego deaths, but it was really more the inner critic, and the unhealthy ego that I was, saying, thank you, I appreciate you. It's time for you to be healed and move on, and to be able to have a healthy ego and a much
Mhm.
cleaner subconscious mind, because as within, so without. Once you heal and work through a lot of that subconscious or unconscious stuff, you have a healthy ego. I shed 40 pounds. Now
Oh yeah.
I'm making money, and it feels so good to receive it as my truth. And I see wealth and money completely differently now.
Mm,
And relationships with my husband, my children are doing so much better at school, because guess what? Mommy is healthier. So
mm.
again, as within, so without, I've healed my ancestors, myself, my children, my marriage. I'm still on the path. I'm not here to say I've got it all figured out. And that's the best part, is being humble and vulnerable and saying, gosh, I don't know the answer to that, Edina. Whereas the old Lois would have been like, sure, I know everything and I'm an expert.
It's
And
the ego.
that's the ego saying, oh no, we gotta look perfect now. We
Yep.
can't admit
Presentation.
failure. You know what I mean? And oh my gosh, how refreshing is it to be in a world where people are like, gosh, don't know the answer. And humility and
Mm.
patience is something else the plants taught me. And my ego didn't have time for humility and patience before.
Yeah, it's like I think of it like a balancing effect between, like you were saying, you just you get more like I don't know, a balanced state, and it's that even in your work going between the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain and the mass, it's like all of this stuff, these distortions have to be coming through to a balance point, right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. You were reading my mind literally, because I was seeing, as you were talking, the two hemispheres, the feminine and the masculine.
Yes, I love that.
They're like in sync, as opposed to the masculine analytical mind being in charge, and the feminine's going, I don't think we can come out and play because daddy is looking really upset right now. You know what I mean? So all of that came through these past 2 years. And now what I want to help teach other people, because it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I had some really, really scary, terrifying experiences, both on microdosing
Mm,
and macrodosing. So that's another reason I'm here today, wanting to just be an advocate. Don't do this stuff on your own. Don't do it
mhm,
in an unsacred way. And again, don't expect, one and done. All of a sudden, you're this changed person, because I think people are seeing that out there, and it's just false advertising, and it's a lot of BS, quite honestly. You got a lot of work to do with the
mhm.
medicine.
Yeah, and like you said, you are here as a coach, and I've heard that too previously, again and again. You need to have like a support person, as someone experienced, a spiritual guide, a shaman, whatever you want to call it. But like I've heard of that important piece. So I appreciate you you bringing that up, because I have a question about who's coming to you. Like, what are they trying to like fix in their life? Like, what do you work with most with your clients, and how do you fix their, like, do they come with all kinds of different problems, or what is the common thing that you're walking them through as a coach and as a healer?
First of all, I want to acknowledge you. You're brilliant at interviewing. Okay. So
Thank you, Lois.
I just want to give you a shout out.
I love my podcast. Thank you. Everyone listen in. Number one on Apple, iTunes.
No, that's amazing. So the answer is it's quite varied. So I'm going to break it down into 3 categories.
Okay.
Although I will tell you they're pretty much all combined and bleed into one another. So grief, people who've been stricken with grief and are like I was, they're too stuck in here, and they want to feel and they want to heal. So people who have, and grief isn't just death, it's job loss, it's divorce. The other one is addictive behaviors. My top ones, believe it or not, I wasn't expecting this. It just it was prevalent, and in both men and women, is alcohol and porn.
Wow.
Those are 2 of the addictive behaviors that I've seen most prevalent. But then the other one is just they want that deeper, expansive spiritual connection. They want to meditate more. They want to quiet this to be able to go in and connect with their heart more. And they've tried everything else. They've been meditating for years, for example, like I had been, but there's just not feeling that expansiveness. And as part of that too, is they're also a little scared, because as you go down that path, and it's happening now for a lot more people, I've seen it personally, and with clients, where their psychic abilities may be coming online, or they're starting to see clairaudient, clairvoyant, they're starting to have these gifts, but they don't know what to do with them. The medicine can help give them the foundation and the messaging to help them work and co-create with these gifts. And then again, with all of those, the grief, the addictive behaviors, and then the quieting the mind, getting into the heart, being more spiritually expansive, all of the tools that I put inside of my coaching programs are there to help people work with this in a way that's not scary, that is going to get them lasting results. Because again, just popping pills doesn't mean your alcohol addiction is going to go away, or your porn addiction is going to go away, or your scrolling addiction is going away. That's the part of that, working with a coach, that'll help.
Right. And so I love it. You broke it down into a couple categories. I know the grief part, we didn't get into your whole story, but I know you mentioned you lost a lot of people in the pandemic, and a lot of people have, I think you said 12 people or something in your life passed in the last couple years, right?
Yeah, well, I've had since 2006, 12 people commit suicide. One of 2 of them were a murder suicide. So a friend killed another friend, all in one shot, like, unfortunately, literally, with a handgun. But and then I've lost both my parents, my stepmom, and my brother in a 4-year window. And then I've had other friends who died of addiction. So that's all since 2006. But a lot of that happened since 2020, end of 2019 is when it was just like one thing, one person after another. And I was just so numb. I didn't cry. When my brother dropped dead and I got the phone call, I just kind of sat there staring into space. And that was actually in February 2020, the beginning of what I would call my realization that something's not right with my heart or with me, because I'm like, oh, that person's dead. And then I just go right back to work and act as if nothing happened. So it was really, really, it was just, I can't even say it was crazy. I knew that there was something that had to change, but it still took me another year before I finally turned to plant medicine, because I was still that numb.
Right. Yeah. And I feel that too. I had part of my spiritual journey has been during the process of seeing, certain friends pass in the pandemic, mental health and, suicide things, and, just fears of that happening to other loved ones. And yeah, so thank you for sharing what you did to help with that. And then also alcohol and porn addiction. Those are really big problems. I know, just I come from a Muslim background, and I think it's a shame that some people might, initially have a like, oh, don't, these are psychedelics. This is all bad, forbidden stuff. But then at the same time, these things can be really used to help with real issues, like we, in the communities and in the religious communities, and everything with porn and alcohol and, addiction. So, other people doing worse drugs and things. So this to me sounds like a much, safer, healthier, it's like even a lifestyle alternative choice, to help with these areas. So that's
Well, what
awesome.
people don't realize, I'm going to say something that's going to probably trigger some folks, and I'm cool
Yeah.
with that, but religion is an addiction.
Right.
You can be addicted to going to church every day, every
Yeah.
week, and
Going through the motions.
feeling better, just getting a dopamine hit, going to church. And then what do you do the
Right.
rest of the week? Right.
Yeah.
So it's about, where is your heart? And we're Jesus himself taught about love and compassion. And I think people who are feeling threatened by what's possible with psychedelics, because it's not going to happen for everyone, because you can abuse psychedelics and you can block them and even use them as tools to make yourself feel superior and look at me. It happens with shamans. It happens in the industry.
Right.
Shadow work can show up in all different forms. But anyway, there's a lot of value in every one of us looking inside of ourselves and really asking, am I coming from a place of love and compassion, or the opposite, which is fear and judgment?
Yeah. And all those ego problems that are creeping up and making us, yeah, like you said, even in the spiritually aware community or in the religious communities, it's a big false presentation of everything, right?
Yeah. And I share that only because I wish I would have heard this. Again, everyone's going to have this, the right people are going to hear what I'm about to say. Like, I sat with people who had been in the industry for 17 years, even shamans, and I had some of the most dangerous, scariest, unprotected, unsafe journeys. And so just really make sure you do your due diligence, whether I'm your resource or someone else. Just make sure that, this is not stuff to be played with. This is like, the veil is very thin. Even when you're microdosing, you can open up to different energies. And that's why the psychedelics were shut down, is because they can absolutely help you become aware and essentially come back into your own sovereignty and your own power. But then it can also expose you to some really dangerous things that, if you're not aware of how to manage or protect yourself, then you can have some really, really, really scary, almost like psychotic breakdown type of experiences.
Right. And I've heard a little bit of that too. So I love that we have this, amount of information from you and all of your background and your history and really where you stand on these things, because, that's going to help a lot of people feel more comfortable and confident when they want to work with you. And I just think it's great to have this level of awareness and discernment. That's one of the themes of 2023 in the spirituality community is discernment. We love it, right?
Oh my gosh. Thank you again. Another between humility, patience, and faith. The medicine reminded me of discernment, because a lot of us, we became sheeple. Let's be honest. Like, we just follow the herd, and we end up going off a cliff or just further away from our truth, which is what happened for me. I was so far from my true nature and purpose, and judging myself accordingly. And then when the inner critic gets going, hello, just watch out. What are you going to do but medicate your medications? And so we want to help you wake up and be discerning about what are your truths and what are the lies that are holding you back.
I love that. Thank you, Lois. Amazing. Well, so can you tell a little bit, of someone's listening, where should they go to find you, work with you? I know you have a program also coming up that I'm taking. Everyone should take too. Yay. Microdosing with ayahuasca starting in day after Father's Day, right? In this month in June.
Yeah. So that'll be my first pilot, if you will, beta group. I've up until this point, I've been doing only group ceremonies. So me and
Okay.
my husband is a shaman. So we do monthly deep dive ceremonies, different cities, Minneapolis, Phoenix, and San Diego. So just tune in with us on that. And the best way to get a hold of me is go to loiskoffi.com/resources. That has a plethora of free tools, even free
Mm,
meditation tools. It also has my microdosing website, so you can book a consultation with me. It has tons of information. It also has access to my podcast, Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. Even if you just want to follow me on, subscribe on YouTube, Lois Koffi Enterprises is perfect. And I do free classes every month where then I showcase my 30-day jump start into microdosing, or these new ayahuasca group programs, because I find that when you do medicine in community, the 30-day one-on-one jumpstart is fantastic.
uh-huh.
But I feel like when other people hear about other people's egos or other people's wounds or
Mm,
other people's losses or traumas, there's that heart connection that, gosh, you know what? I'm not alone. I'm not the only one
mm.
with this fear or this addiction or this people pleasing issue or whatever. So I'm starting to do at the time of this recording, and you're part of my first group, but then I really expect to be doing open enrollments for future 4-week programs. And I will just say really quickly, I've worked a ton with psilocybin. I've microdosed a ton with psilohuasca, which is psilocybin and ayahuasca together. Now,
Oh,
with ayahuasca, what I didn't expect, because when you sit with grandmother, they call her the medicine, the vine. When you sit with her, whoo, she can be harsh. Like maybe your grandmother might have slapped you upside the head for grabbing the cookies too soon. You're supposed to, wait for that for dessert. She can be brutal in ceremony with the deep dives. However, I've been dosing with her for the last couple months, and I have really softened into my feminine side, my creative
yes.
side, my sensual side, my intuitive side. I've cleansed a lot more of that masculine ego wound that was still and is still lingering. I'm still alive. I'm still human. So there's stuff that it's always going to be worked on, but I've actually had my solar plexus, my sacral, my womb started pulsating. In working with her, I cried, I released some anxiety. So I'm really excited to be showcasing, and it's not very common. It took me years to find a really good source for
I love
grandmother.
that. Good
And
source.
so
Yes.
we'll be diving into, and it's for men or women. I mean, right now it's mostly women have partaken, but I have one gentleman and another one who's looking to sign up to really again come into our heart, to soften and be more open and receptive and love and compassion. And
Mm,
by softening that, then the masculine side of ourselves will be more soft and tender and courageous and less controlling and less manipulative and all of that kind of stuff. So I just want to speak openly about that, because I feel like the world, like that song, the world needs love, love, sweet love. And I feel like what I've been shown and what's been coming through me as a result of working with her just in microdosing is so sweet. And I wanted to put that out there for people to be aware of.
Amazing. Yes. And it's like you describe connecting to your feminine, balancing into the feminine side. So many women are talking about this like kind of polarity work. I even see posts about how if you had a divorce, go do your polarity work before you have another relationship. So there's so many applications to this work and this timing, right? Yeah, we want to do this work to help
Well,
the feminine. Yeah.
and if I can say one more thing, and I
Yeah, yeah,
appreciate
sure.
you,
Hey, go it. Let's go.
because we're in what my metaphysics coach calls, it's the period 9. We're heading into the women, the feminine rising for careers,
Yes.
etc. And that's all in tandem with the divine feminine energies that are coming in and rebalancing the earth. Again, I'm not going to get in all of that 5D conversation, because that's way out there right now to go from what we've been talking about. But I study all of that, and I know
Yeah.
that I know that's why this conversation about polarity, and even for men to just really embrace their softer feminine side, it's happening. Like, a lot of people are having trauma come up, and you know why? It's because you've got to feel it so you can heal it and soften into more of that feminine, and we're all getting rebalanced and recalibrated. It's just some more painful than others, because if you're not listening, it's going to be like a baseball bat upside the head.
Right. Feel it to heal it, heal through it, all of those things. Yeah, obviously great themes that we're seeing in our own lives and our own spiritual journeys. I mean, I don't know. It seems like all of us are on these healing journeys. I think we're seeing a lot of common themes. I love having you as a guest today, because it's like we touched on absolutely all of them as far as I can tell. So this is great, Lois. Thank you so much. Is there any other last words that you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up, or anything you'd like to leave us with at the end of this episode?
Oh gosh. I think just if you choose this path, first of all, do your research, feel it being a call in your heart, meaning the microdosing and or even the macrodosing path. Don't just do it because your friend's doing it and it's cool, because I feel like it is pretty trendy right now. Yeah. And it's like jumping on the bandwagon of when Clubhouse came out, right? Ooh, I might miss out. Don't do it from that heady space. Do it because you really, really feel it in your heart. It's the right path. And then just be ready that it's going to be a bit of a journey, and there's going to be some bumps and bruises and some roller coaster rides along the way. But if you really feel connected to the medicine and do the work along the path, it's going to be the most life-changing, delicious ride. I can almost guarantee that.
I love it. Okay, great. Yeah, you're the one to take us there, Lois. We're doing it. Here goes the train.
And I would be honored to serve anyone. And I'm also here to say that if I'm not the right person, I've got some really amazing colleagues and different specialties and different niches also that I can recommend along the way.
I love it. And because like you said, people can go, they can book a call with you. They could, you have your monthly support calls or informational calls. You have one-on-one work. You have group sessions now where people are coming together. So this has been so wonderful, Lois. I'm so excited to have you, today, and to get all this information to our listeners. And I'm excited to start your program myself. And hopefully you get, more and more going this year, and we are just taking off, because this is where it's at. I love this work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much. This is Edina Mauvana and Into the Light. Right. Okay, they're gonna